Tansy. The creative team at Nickle-Eye's Plant Adventures would like to acknowledge that we are filming on Treaty 6 territory at Amiskwa-Skikwa-Squagan, also known as the Beaver Hill House. We would like to acknowledge and thank all the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We wouldn't be where we are today without their stewardship of the land and all their unique nations and teachings. I hope to honor my heritage and ancestors by passing down the importance of nature and storytelling through this show. We keep our cultures alive through the stories we tell, and I hope someday to hear yours as well. Miigwech. Hi. It is mid-fall here at the Beaver House, and we just experienced our first snowfall. Most of the trees are pretty bare. You can see a few tiny buds, but all the leaves have gone. This one still has some leaves. See? 3 little leaves. This one still has most of its leaves. I wonder why. I appreciate that it's so colorful. I love all the reds, oranges, and dark browns. There's even a little bit of green. It's very beautiful. I wonder what will happen to all these things under the snow. Like this bark. Or these leaves. Or this big, long piece of grass. You can see the grains at the top. What will happen to all of this? I decide to investigate. There may be snow outside, but there's still so much more to learn about plants. Hi everyone, it's great to see you again. Last time we met up, we went to the Royal Alberta Museum, and there we learned so much about decomposing bugs from my friend Peter. Peter told us about the role decomposing bugs play in our ecosystem. They eat dead plant and animal matter and poop it out. It sounds really silly, but it makes fertilizer, and it helps the plants grow nice and strong. I had so much fun looking at all the bugs and getting to handle them. It's great to learn new things. When I got home, I decided to look more at my isopods. I learned that the Royal Alberta Museum is looking for Albertans to help out with research by taking pictures of them and sending it to this email, isopods@ualberta.ca. Help them out if you can. Then I decided to work on a craft. During our time together, I worked on making some decomposers. But here you can see me working on another bug. Can you guess what it is? I saw something like this at the museum. Finally, at the end of our visit, I shared a story with you. Hades and Persephone. While learning about decomposers, I made a connection between Hades, the god of the dead, and decomposers. Because people tend to think that Hades and decomposers are icky or bad, because they are involved with death, but really they both play such an important role. Today, I want to learn about other decomposing plants. Let's go investigate them. Before my adventure, I like to do some research. This helps me know what to look for. So far, I learned that decomposers play an important role in cleaning up leaves, grass, and twigs. There are two main kinds of decomposers, fungi and bugs. Today, I'll look at fungi and plants. Mushrooms come in all shapes and sizes. I found some out in winter. Some people like to forage for mushrooms. That means they like to go out into the forest to find mushrooms to eat. However, I like to leave mushrooms alone. Identifying mushrooms can be really tricky, and if you're foraging, it's really important to identify them correctly. If you pick the wrong mushroom and you eat it, you can become very sick. That's why I stick to mushrooms I can find at the local grocery store or farmer's market. I know those are safe to eat. Let's identify some that I have. First, it's important to see some parts you'll see in most mushrooms. The cap is at the very top of the mushroom. It is usually round, but it might be a different shape depending on the type of mushroom it is. Gills are found at the bottom of the cap. They look like little fins. These hold the spores of the mushrooms. Spores are like seeds. Next, some mushrooms will have stems. These stems are like the ones you'll see in flowers. They'll hold the cap up. I have 4 kinds of mushrooms here. Let's look at the differences. There should be a shiitake mushroom, an oyster mushroom, an enoki mushroom, and a cremolini mushroom. First, let's take a look at these long white mushrooms. They look very unique. The caps on them are so small. It's easy to identify these mushrooms. These are enoki mushrooms. They come from Nihon, also known as Japan. Next, let's take a look at these other unique looking mushrooms. This one doesn't have a stem, but it has big gills. It attaches to the sides of trees like this, just like the one I found. This mushroom is also easy to identify. It is called an oyster mushroom. Now this is where things get harder. Which one is the cremolini and which one is the shiitake? Both are brown, both have caps and stems, both are about the same size. How can I tell them apart? First, I take a closer look at the caps. The cap of the first mushroom is completely brown. On the second cap, I notice little white spots along the edges. I can already see some differences between these mushrooms. Let's keep looking. Now let's check the bottom. The gills of the first mushroom are white, and they look really smushed together. On the second mushroom, the gills are dark brown, and the gills are really distinct. You can see each one. I can run my finger across them, like a notebook. Finally, let's compare the stems. For the first mushroom, it looks like it was cut a few times. And again, I can run my finger across the edge. I don't think I could pull this off in one piece. For the second mushroom, I can take the stem off in one piece very easy. It is really firm and keeps its shape. Now that I observe the mushrooms, I can start to figure out what they are. While they look similar at first glance, they're actually quite different when you look at all the details. The first mushroom had a brown cap, white gills that are smushed together, and an odd stem. This must be a shiitake mushroom. This one is also from Nihon, like the enoki mushrooms. That means this last one is a cremolini. These mushrooms are closely related to portobello mushrooms, like the mushroom I based Hades off of. Cremolinis tend to be smaller portobellos, like baby portobellos. They have similar qualities. like a firm, strong stem and a big brown cap with distinct gills underneath them. You can see those features in my painting of Hades. This is really cool identifying these mushrooms. I wonder what other decomposing plants are out there. I decided to go outside to look for these decomposers and plants. As I explored outside, I noticed many trees have lichen on them. Some have a lot of lichen on them, and some just have a little bit. For something so small, lichen is really complex. Lichen is an example of a symbiotic relationship. A symbiotic relationship is when two different kinds of plants and animals interact. For example, we have a symbiotic relationship with our pets. You feed your pet and you give them a good home, and they fill your life with happiness and fun. Lichen is a mix of algae, the green stuff you find in lakes, rivers, or your fish tank if you have one, and fungi, like mushrooms. The fungi acts as a little home for the algae, and the algae feeds the fungi. Algae can feed the fungi because it makes it its own food. Like other plants that live on the land, it can make food all by itself by using photosynthesis. The algae soaks up the rays of the sun to make sugar that can be stored for later. The fungi and algae work together to keep each other alive and happy. Lichen comes in many colors. Sometimes it is blue or green, other times it is yellow or orange. There are about 1,000 species of lichen in Alberta. Each color of lichen is determined by the algae inside them. Lichens perform many jobs in our ecosystems. Lichens are very hardy and can live in all sorts of tough environments. You can find them up north in the tundra or in the city. They will grow in places other plants can't, like houses or rocks. Lichen is usually the first plant species to move into a new area. Once lichen sets up, other small plants and animals can move in. Lichens can clean the air like a little filter. It is a cheap and easy way for scientists to test the quality of the air. Lichens can also help control temperatures of other plants, like a little thermostat. Another plant that can help with temperature control is moss. Moss looks a lot like lichen. It is small and green. I found this moss at the base of a tree by a small pond. Moss is common in wetlands. It acts like a little sponge and absorbs lots of water. The water inside the moss can help it from getting too hot or too cold. Moss can also provide shade for other bigger plants. However, you don't need to go outside to find decomposing plants and fungi. There's also mold. You can find mold almost anywhere. If you haven't cleaned your fridge out in a while, you might have accidentally grown some already. The mold first sets up shop in a vegetable or a fruit. The fruit or vegetable will start to become mushy. This is because the spores have gotten inside and starting to grow, but we can't see it yet. It's just too small. As the mold continues to sit there, we can start to see it. Mold can come in many colors, but it is typically a mix of black, white, blue, green. It also oftentimes looks fuzzy. If you find food with mold on it, do not eat it. It will make you sick. However, if you grow a garden, you can put old fruits and veggies into a bin to make compost. Plants love compost because it is full of a bunch of nutrients they need to grow big and strong. Around this time of year, people throw out pumpkins. This year I decided to keep a couple to see what would happen to them. I got a mixture of different sizes to see what would happen. The small ones dried out. If they did grow mold, it would grow a small amount and then stop. It didn't really spread. You can hear the seeds shaking around in this one. And this one's all shriveled up. The bigger pumpkins, however, something different happened. The big pumpkins got all squishy and mushy. They grew black mold that looks fibrous, like a black cotton ball. And it started leaking all this icky liquid. Ugh! It smells a bit funny too. What craft do I want to do today? What can I do with these mushrooms? I got it. Nickle-Eye's Guide to Mushroom Art. What you will need: fresh mushrooms, dried mushrooms, or really any mushrooms will do. I just got these from the grocery store. And I'm using rubber gloves. The steps to take: play around with your mushrooms and examine them. Touch them, smell them, pull them apart, and figure out what you want to do. I remember growing up and being told not to play with my food. I was told it was rude, but as I got older, I learned that it's lots of fun. Playing with food is a great way to explore and learn more about it. Unlike other kinds of play, food play can engage all of your senses. You can see it, touch it, smell it. You can even taste it if you want to. Whatever you want to do. Even if you don't want to feel, smell, or taste anything, you can make changes to do that. For example, like how I wore these gloves. Food play is another great way of getting to learn new kinds of food. Sometimes trying a new food can be really scary. What will it be like? But if you play with it a bit, it might not be as scary anymore. Try it out and let me know how it is. After learning all about decomposers the last couple days, I'm ready to settle down and read a few of my favorite nursery rhymes. I like listening to the rhyme and rhythm of Mother Goose poems. Mother Goose poems are hundreds of years old, and you've probably heard a few, like Patty Cake, Twinkle Twinkle, and Hot Cross Buns. There are many other rhymes, though. Here are some that you might not recognize. "4 and 20 tailors went to kill a snail. The best amongst them dost touch her tail. She put out her horns like a little cow. Run, tailors, run, or she'll kill you all." This rhyme might sound funny to you. It has a lot of words and phrases we don't use anymore. Let me explain some of them. 4 and 20 is another way of saying 24. It reminds me of math class. 2 10s and 4 1s. 24. DOS means the same as do. Thou and thee are different ways of saying you, but we stopped using them a long time ago. It is really cool to see how language changes over time. Words and stories go through a life cycle, just like plants and animals do. The life cycle of a story goes like this. It starts when someone writes it. As the story is told, others make small changes. As the story reaches more people, other bigger changes are made. Or this story might inspire a new story to be written. Once these new stories are written and newer versions are made, these older versions stop being told, and we may lose them. This is normal for stories. As life changes, so do the stories and words we use to reflect those changes. There is another Mother Goose poem that is similar. Snail, snail, come out of your hole, or else I'll beat you black as coal. I don't like this poem very much. I don't like that the snail gets hurt. Snails are another great decomposer. Maybe I can change this poem to reflect how I feel about snails. Let's see. I want to change the poem so the snail doesn't get hurt. I want the poem to still rhyme. How do I find a word that rhymes with coal and hole? They both have that ol sound at the end. So if I put a new sound at the beginning, maybe I'll get a new word. Let's try a B first. Bowl. Hey, that does sound like a word. That's bowl. Let's try another one. Goal. Goal. That's another word. It's spelled like this. Now that I have some rhyming words, let's rewrite these poems. Snail, snail, come out of your hole. I got food for you in this bowl. I like that one. That was really nice. All right, let's try another one. Snail, snail, come out of your hole and go make the winning goal. Those poems sound a lot nicer. I like them. I'd love to see what poems you come up with. See you next time.